we had something called the Black Writers Congress, which took place in Montreal in 1968. I got to Montreal in 67 and 68. And that conference, all the leading people in the Black Power movement internationally, people who were looking for rights for black people and so on, civil rights and so on, and a better stake in the society and so on. All of them were there. Sarah James was there, Sophie Carmichael was there, James Foreman was there, and so on. Sarah James, I think I said that. And that is when we found out about Walter Rodney, because this was his first public event that he attended to. And after the Black Writers Congress, when he went back to Jamaica, they banned him from coming. He was Guyanese, by the way, and he was a brilliant lecturer at UE in Jamaica. They banned him from coming back to Jamaica, and that caused a lot of riots and serious riots in Jamaica at the time. So the Black Writers Congress was held, and that influenced us as students, young students. You know, the whole world at that time was involved in all sorts of things were happening. The war in Vietnam, for instance, okay, and what was going on in Africa with all the liberation movements, and then Martin Luther King in the south of America, of North America, and so on. Okay, as a young student, I was involved in marching and demonstrating. There are so many issues internationally, almost on a daily basis. You know, it was really fantastic. And then in the midst of all of that, this Professor Anderson, Perry Anderson, biology teacher, he began to operate in a racial way towards the students. All right, you might want to know, well, in what way? I'll give you an example. The guys tested it out, West Indian students that is, by taking a lab report that a white girl did, and just simply changing the name, okay, and making some other minor changes, you know. And when the black student gave in the very same report, Professor Anderson failed him. All right? There was a Jewish girl who did a report too for him, and she didn't do very well, and he wrote on her paper, you know, it doesn't matter, you're only a Jew. You know, he was that kind of out-and-out rabid racist. And our students, his course was very important, because that is the course that all medical students had to do. So he was an important person in the whole scheme of things. So we began to take action against Professor Anderson and demand that he stop his racial attitudes and so on.
The UE students, a number of them, probably numbering about 200 in those days, decided to present a petition to the then Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams. And they journeyed from St. Augustine. I went and met them there. And they traveled by train in 1968. And they marched through the streets. They did not come with a mortarboard, but they came with their flowing gongs. And that created an impact of UE students in a demonstration through the streets of Port-au-Spain to get to Whitehall to present a petition to the Prime Minister calling for his intervention for the renewal of the contract and the deportation. And they marched, and when they were about to reach Whitehall, the police and the soldiers closed the gates. And they went up, and the students began to climb over the wall to present the petition. Now, 69 is when the Sir George Williams University. And again, the UE students, and that was on the 11th of February, 1969, that incident. And the UE students, in 1969, when they were putting the students on trial, no, a year later, in 1970. But in 69, there was a significant and historical event, which was a strike by the bus workers. 1969. And again, the Student Guild and other organizations, what you now call NGOs and so on, joined in solidarity with the bus workers' strike.
In terms of even San Fernando and a lot of the leadership of the February Revolution and what became known as the Black Power movement, people like Winston Sweet, who is still at the University of the West Indies, is from San Fernando. Wayne Davis is from San Fernando. This movement was not centralized in Port of Spain. And I think one of the important things to remember about that period of our history was the one thing that has been often portrayed as the breaking point, talking about the race relations in the country, the race relations between predominantly the large African population and the large Indo population, and these notions of tribal politics and what have you. When we look at that period, as a young woman, I can tell you that those lines became very, very blurred because people were being mobilized and were coalescing around their common interests. And it was the tipping point, the declaration of the state of emergency on April 21st in 1970 was coming on the backs of the return march of Caroni to Port of Spain. We had done Port of Spain to Caroni. And everybody basically tried to say, in the news and the commentators that, my God, these people are going to go to Caroni, and these Indian people are so afraid of these, using the N word, so afraid of these niggers coming to Caroni. And, lock up your daughters and close your doors because these people from town, all these black people in dashikis coming down to Caroni. And the exact opposite transpired. In fact, the people all along the route, and people like Clive would attest, they were more in the forefront. Not only did they enjoin the march from Port of Spain, women came out with oranges and water and food, and these are things that are not taught in the history. So it belied that piece of propaganda that these niggers from town would really do in these Indian coolie people from Central. When the state of emergency was declared, many of the brass of NJAC were actually at my parents' home at Robertson Street in San Fernando. It was the last night of strategizing before the big march in Caroni to Port of Spain, in which all of the sugar workers, the people from on the Valley Line in Barrackpore, the entire sugar fraternity and community joining in with the oil workers, the students, the academics, the brothers and sisters on the block. That was a show of force that was going to be unleashed on this country. Dr. Williams was a student of history. Dr. Williams was a historian. Dr. Williams was the man who led the march, or was one of them who led the march, I'm sure Shagaramas, or led them, in terms of independence. He understood the singular import, historical import, that would have on galvanizing and moving the country.
The very term Black Power has been misinterpreted. The Black Power activists have been stereotyped. They have been denied jobs. And I wanted to try to revise the history, try to bring in some of the minorities within the Black Power movement, and also we are planning to go on the 18th of February to Tobago to look at Black Power in Tobago. A lot of people just see Black Power as confined to Port of Spain and a few leaders. But I am hoping that this series of discussions would be able to enlighten and educate and empower some of our students. And it will also sensitize the teachers to this important historical event in Trinidad and Tobago, which is connected globally, because we had Trinidadians in England, United States, Canada, and we also had other Caribbean citizens who took part in Black Power. So Black Power is a global movement. It's an extremely important event which helped to improve the lives of people.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together.